If you'd like to just start by introducing yourself and then maybe share some of your background and some of your story, personally, professionally, and incorporating, how maybe music's been in there too, but just a little bit of who you are to start.
My name's Richard Moore, and I come from Derry in Northern Ireland. I've lived in Derry all my life. So I was born in 1961. So I remember Derry and I remember Northern Ireland before the conflict, the 30-year conflict started. So I remember peacetime, then I remember the conflict, and now we're enjoying the peace process again. And I lived in the Craig estate in Derry, which at that time, especially around 1968-69, became at the epicenter of the Northern Ireland conflict. And as a result of that, the Craigan became known as a no-go area. Of course, you have Bloody Sunday and stuff in January 1972, which is a very tragic, very sad and incident, and that had an enormous impact on the people of Derry, and my family particularly, because my uncle Jared was shot dead on Bloody Sunday. But the people of the Craigan estate were, 4 or 5 of the people that were shot dead that day were from that area. So it was something very real. And it also had an enormous impact, I think, on the rest of Northern Ireland, because arguably the weeks and months that followed Bloody Sunday were among the most violent period in the history of the Northern Ireland conflict. So that in many ways, I suppose, set a context for what happened to me. I went to the local primary school in the Craigan, and on the 4th of May 1972, when I was on my way home from school, I was making my way towards a school gate, and as a result of that, me and my friends were having a race along the bottom of the school football pitch, and it was a British Army lookout installation, a lookout post installation at the bottom of the school playground. And as I ran past that, a British soldier fired a rubber bullet that struck me here on the bridge of the nose. I lost my right eye and I was permanently blinded in my left eye. So in many ways, I would often say that day when I was knocked over by the rubber bullet, I was knocked on a journey. And in many ways, I'm still on that journey. I bounced back remarkably well from what happened. And I think it was down to the fact that I come from a good family, a good community, plenty of support networks, my teachers, as I say, my parents and my brothers and sisters, my friends, the local clergy, local politicians. They were all very supportive of me and my family. And as a result of that support and genuine compassion, really, I bounced back remarkably well from what happened. I was able to go back to school, went back to my primary school, went on to my secondary school, and, went to university and that. And I genuinely believe that was because of the level of support that I received. So I would say very strongly that I've been on the receiving end of so much love and compassion in my life. And it's because of that love and compassion that I decided to set up a charity called Children in Crossfire. And, I would say that the reason why Children in Crossfire exists is not because of me. It's because of the people in my life that showed me, as I say, what real love and compassion is. And it was as a result of that genuine support that I received in my life that I thought, every child in the world, no matter how challenging the circumstances might seem, that given the right level of support, the right level of love and compassion, that they may bounce back and, contribute positively to their own life and the lives of others. And so the Children in Crossfire was born in 1996. I started it then, and today we work in Tanzania and Ethiopia, and we work with some of the most vulnerable children in the world, children that suffer every day from the injustice of poverty. And I suppose our main role is providing access to pre-primary education. through training teachers, through providing access to classroom resources, and as well as that, building classrooms, because many children are being taught in conditions that are substandard, in derelict buildings. Some children don't even have a classroom. You're talking about places where the roofs are falling in, there's no roof on a building, or there's no doors. Or many children can't even get to school because there's no facility for them. And as well as that, then even children who are in those classrooms suffer from things like malnutrition, suffer from waterborne diseases. And it's very difficult for a child to learn when you're hungry. Very difficult for a child to learn if they suffer from diarrhea and vomit and brought about by drinking dirty water and so on. So there are many issues out there, and children in Crossfire try to, in the countries where we operate in Tanzania and the regions within those countries, try in some way to, bring opportunities to young children under 6 years of age who suffer from those conditions. The other big thing in my life was forgiveness. I think, people would often ask me, why is it that I'm so, say, happy as a blind person? And why is it that how is it that I've dealt with such a traumatic incident in the way that I have, with such a positive outlook, I suppose? And, as well as all that support that I outlined, I'm delighted to say that I've never had any anger or any hatred towards the British soldier that shot me. And I think that was a big factor. I would often say, I found freedom and forgiveness. And, I had a lot to deal with in terms of blindness itself and everything that brings with it, without being weighed down with a baggage of hatred and anger. So I consider myself very lucky and very blessed not to feel like that. And as a result of not feeling any sense of anger and having the presence of forgiveness in my life, I was able to get on with my life in a very positive and productive way, I think.
Thank you for sharing that, Richard. Can you give me a little bit of insight into when you were growing up, before that happened and after and since, how music's played a part in your life, or, was that part of your family background, or what were your first memories and your, startings with music in your life?
I think music was always a big part of my life. I wasn't always a musician. I didn't always play the guitar or anything. But I remember growing up as a young child in Malin Gardens in the Craigan Estate. And, I was the second youngest of a family of 12. And I had 7 brothers older than me and 3 sisters older than me. And, music was always being played in our house. We had an old record player. And this record player, you could plug in an extension speaker to it. So there was a record player up in the bedroom, and then there was a cable run from that record player to facilitate the extension speaker, and that was downstairs in our living room. So we had, when you put the records on upstairs, then you could hear it downstairs as well. And, my brothers, I always remember them bunching up, putting, I think it might have been 10 pence a week, if my memory serves me right. And they would put 10 pence each into a kitty, into a pot. And then they would buy the recent sort of releases that week. So I used to, brought up in listen to 60s music in our house, the Beatles, Tom Jones, and people like that. And then, of course, you had the Irish music. um, all the, the Irish folk music and stuff, which was very prevalent in those days. And my mommy would have loved sort of Irish country music a bit. On top of all that, then you used to have the odd party in the house, or go to the odd party, because back in the 60s, people had no money. My daddy and my mommy were both unemployed. And, they didn't go out to pubs or no such thing as restaurants that I remember anything in those days. So they'd maybe go to the odd party, whether it be in a neighbour's house or one of my brother's houses who were married at the time or whatever, and they would go there for some reason. And music was a big part, sing-songs were a big part. My mother was a beautiful singer, and she used to sing all sorts of Irish camallies, you might say, and stuff like that. So music was a big part of it. And we had a piano in our house. And nobody could play the piano. I think my sister was trying to learn the piano when she was in school. But we all used to go in and tinkle the ivories and end up playing by ear. I did it, my brothers before me did it and stuff like that. So I remember at a young age, going in and opening up the lid of the piano still. And there was sheet music in there. And I couldn't read it, but I remember on our piano we had a kind of a music stand. It was part of the piano, and I remember lifting the sheet music out. It could have been upside down for all I was aware. I could see them, but I didn't know which was the right way up or the wrong way up for music. And I used to put it up on the music stand and then sit playing the piano as if I was some sort of concert pianist. And looking at the music as if I knew what I was looking at. Hadn't got a clue. But music and the sound of music echoed through our house all the time. My mommy sang all day, every day. Because my mommy spent her time. You can imagine having 12 children. And, my mommy used to spend her time in the kitchen, washing and drying and ironing the clothes and all that sort of stuff. And again, back in those days, you didn't have your fancy automatic wash machines or anything like that. My mommy did have a twin tub dryer that she used to dry the clothes in and stuff. But she eventually got that, but it wasn't always like that either. With an old mangle in the kitchen, and just to run the clothes through that to squeeze out the water. I used to watch her wringing out clothes and different things over the sink, and then she was out every day hanging the washing out in the back clothesline. But all during that, my mommy used to sing. She used to sing whatever songs was in her head or whatever, and she was a beautiful singer. So music was a massive part of my life. And then I remember, and not only, our house, but the street, music was there. People used to put their speakers on the windowsill on a good day, and the music would be blaring out over the street and stuff. And maybe every community everywhere did that. But, there was no hiding the fact that music was very much something that we all enjoyed. And maybe it's an Irish thing as well, I don't know. But I remember then there was a guy across the street, the Bradleys across the street. They were musicians. And I remember a guy, I think I might have called him Jim Bradley. And I remember him, he used to bring his guitar out. Back around the time of the start of the Troubles, Craigan became a no-go area. So that, a no-go area, and that Craigan was officially known as a no-go area. And that basically meant that the British Army or the police weren't welcome into the area. So every street in this big estate had a barricade made out of hijacked vehicles put across the road, or rubble from pavements that were dug up and broken up and all that. And the purpose of these barricades were to stop the military or the police coming into the area easily. So every street had a vigilante hut at the end of the street, and that was like a workman's hut that the men out of the area used to maybe sit in at night to keep an eye out in case there was an alarm needed to be raised if the army or the police were trying to infiltrate the area. But during the day and early evening, we as children used to play in these barricades. These barricades were our playground. And we used to hang around them, the vigilante hut. And I remember Jim Bradley, with his guitar, at times used to come up and play the guitar. And I used to look at him and think he was fantastic. You know, a guitar player. And I used to look at him and think, God, I would love to really play the guitar. And I remember him one time, you know, taking my finger and pressing it on the string. And I remember thinking it was very sober, you know, pressing the guitar string. So I had a real interest. And then what happened with me then was, after I lost my sight, and I'm sure my mommy and daddy were struggling to think, you know, what would Richard do? I played football, enjoyed a bit of football, and done all the games that children do. So then when you lose your sight, the way that I lost my sight, then some of those things just didn't naturally fall into place anymore. But it was at a family wedding, and the wedding was in the bride's house. My brother was getting married, and the wedding was held in his new wife's house, the wedding reception. And her brother was a guy called Lorne Dean. And Lorne played the guitar at the wedding. And I remember sitting in the house, and I was blind then. And Lorne came down and set the guitar on my knee. And I remember just, you know, feeling it really and trying to strum it a bit. Obviously, there was no chords or anything musical, just a noise. But I remember saying to my mommy or my daddy, I'd love to learn the guitar. And like magic, 4 days later, a guitar with an amplifier arrived in my house. And that was the beginning of my guitar journey.
So leading off of that, Richard, can you share a little bit how music has maybe helped you in times of hardship and both playing as well as listening?
I suppose music played a big part in my social life. Because I was blind then, as I mentioned already, you know, I wasn't going to go out and play football with my friends and things like that. And, you know, maybe a lot of disabled people have the challenge of where they fit in a way. I can't speak for every disabled person, but, you know, I wonder, does that be a challenge for a lot of disabled people? I guess it does for some. And I suppose for me, music became my social outlet. And I was beginning to mix with other people who played the guitar. My ultimate guitar teacher was a guy called Michael Doherty. And Michael really took an interest in me over and above teaching the guitar. And, you know, I used to go to guitar lessons he used to conduct guitar lessons with 2 or 3 people. So you end up sitting in a room with 2 other guys or 3 other people who were all learning like you. And you pitched their ability against them. You were trying to keep up and make sure you weren't the worst guitar player in the room and all that sort of stuff. But you got also built up friendships. And a few of my friends in the street then were playing the guitar. And I began to mix with them and, you know, play the guitar together. And as you got more proficient at it, then before you know it, 1 or 2 of your friends were calling to your house who played the guitar. So you're having like guitar sessions. And then I used to hang around Rosemount Youth Centre. And Michael Doherty, the guitar player that taught me, he was a youth leader down there. And he used to take me down there a couple of nights a week. And of course, I got to the point where Michael didn't need to take me down because I developed friendships through the guitar and set up a small band. We had a small band called Dice, and we used to practice and play at the odd concert in the youth centre. And we thought we were brilliant. And that was my whole social life. And then not only that, when you're a musician, you sort of stand out a wee bit, don't you? And
Right.
as a result of that, you were not only finding ways to mix, but you were kind of a wee bit more important, and it made you feel good about yourself. So I think music played a big part in helping me deal with blindness. And at the time, I didn't think about it, obviously, but when you look back on it, music really was an enabler for me. It opened up opportunities for me as a blind person. It frog leaped a lot of challenges that I might have had to face about getting out, making friends, feeling good about yourself. I believe that music and playing the guitar was very important. It wasn't the single most important thing in my life, but it was certainly up there. And being a conduit or a process that helped me deal with blindness. And you can talk about all sorts of theories and talk about all sorts of support you can receive as a disabled person. But all that disappears. The need for that disappeared with me because of that guitar and because of those guitar lessons. And then when you go home and you're sitting in the house, you don't need anything else. You don't need to be sitting feeling lonely. You don't need to be sitting feeling you've nothing to do or whatever. Just go in the room and lift the guitar, and hours would pass by when you're sitting playing on your own and practicing and learning songs and the sense of achievement that you had. So for your confidence and all of that, it was great as well. And you would sit down with a guitar solo or a song that you wanted to learn, and you get there with it. And only a musician can describe what it feels like when you learn a new chord, what it feels like when you figure out a song, the chords of a song that you love. I'm sure it's equivalent to a footballer going out and scoring a goal or progressing in a football match or his team progressing. Music and playing the guitar was, at night when you were sitting in the house or in the evening, it was fantastic. And then the next thing, you'd strap the guitar on and you would take it to school with you. And the teachers would have you doing something with the guitar. And once you had the guitar and you had the ability and understood the music, then anything was possible. And that's, when you look at, say, the long-term folk group that me and my wife Rita runs, and we've run it now 43 years at this stage. That is my whole social life. The people in that folk group have been in it almost, some of them maybe over 30 years as children, and now they're young adults, or now they're adults. And, they are my friends as well as people who sing in the folk group. Their children come to the folk group. And in some way, it was a big connection with my faith as well. So the opportunities that the guitar gave me and the healing that the guitar gave me is something that you can't over-exaggerate, to be honest.
Thank you, Richard. Next, could you share some of your thoughts on how music connects people and how it strengthens relationships as a source of commonality and, lack of another way of putting it, a universal language?
The great thing about the great thing about music is nothing else matters. When you're a musician, nothing else matters. And I can see that here in Northern Ireland. Because when you play the guitar and you play in a band, you're not interested in what the religion is of the guy standing beside you. You're not even interested in their politics. And they're not interested in yours. And like Northern Ireland obviously had a 30-odd year conflict that divided the country on religious and political grounds. And as a result of that, you had the conflict and all the tragedy that come with that. But throughout that, I played in a band with people of the opposite religion and the opposite political persuasion from me. And it didn't matter. We just loved music. They liked the Beatles or the Eagles, I liked the Beatles or the Eagles, or Status Quo or Deep Purple or Fleetwood Mac or whatever band of the time. And that was our religion. So, music united us in many ways. And like, when I played the band, sometimes I look back and think we lived in a bubble. Our road crew, some of them were from a different religion from me. And then the musicians definitely were a different religion from me or political background. And none of us gave a monkey's. We just hopped on the vehicle and off we went to the gig, or we went to practice, or we spent day after day, week after week together, playing, practicing, chatting music, picking songs we liked. And then you go out and you entertain people. Well, we thought we were entertaining people anyway, but it genuinely did. So it throughout the conflict, it almost took us out of it, above it. But it also united us. And it just proves the point, how music speaks to everybody, irrespective of what your political persuasions are. So you could take this music, we played in venues, particularly all over Northern Ireland, where, maybe I would never have been in if I hadn't been a musician. Because it took you in to the depths of the other community. And the same in reverse. Some of the guys in the band were playing in communities where, they would never have been on my side of the house. And through that music and through those opportunities, you learn about each other. And I always say, the great thing about blindness is you see the person first. I'm sitting doing this, having this conversation with you. I don't know what you look like. You could be, your skin could be a different color from mine. I don't know. You could be wearing a Union Jack or a tricolour top or a Northern Ireland or a Republic of Ireland football top. I don't know, and I don't care. Blindness, you don't see any of those things. And I think it's the same with music. Music, it doesn't matter. I think also when you're a musician, there's a sensitivity there that musicians have, where music is the most important thing. The song is the most important thing. And maybe you just don't see the benefit in offending somebody else or hurting somebody else. And I also think that throughout, say, the conflict in Northern Ireland, and you talk about any situation in the world, music was a great release for people. When you went in to play at a gig, it didn't matter if they were Unionist, Loyalist, Protestant, Catholic. It was a relief, a release, a night out to take your mind away from all the things that you had to deal with on a daily basis. I really believe that. And music gives people that release, that space where they can forget about their woes, forget about their problems, and just go and enjoy themselves. And quite often, they were enjoying themselves with people, that maybe didn't think the same as them, but it didn't matter. So I think genuinely in the lives of all of us, whether you be sitting in the house tonight, listening to a song you like, whether you be a musician learning a song you like, or playing in a band, or whether you be just somebody going to a venue where music is being played or whatever, it takes you out of yourself. It changes your mood. It's uplifting. It's reflective. And sometimes it helps you tease out whatever emotions or experiences you might have. Like, for example, for me, music is in many ways a photograph. I can't see photographs. But music for me is like a photograph. If I hear a song, like say 10cc Not in Love, that reminds me of running around the Craig with my friends. You know, Bay City Rollers, Bye Bye Baby. I can nearly see where I was sitting the day that song became number one in the charts here. And there's other songs that you'll think about all the time. No later than yesterday, I heard a song, Real Real Gone by Van Morrison. And it took me back to playing in the band. And I was actually talking to people about, that just reminds me of us playing in the band. So music in many ways can bring out back happy thoughts, but can also bring sad thoughts. Like some songs remind me of my mommy or my daddy. Like my mommy and daddy's song was South of the Border. And they used to sing it at parties and stuff. But you know, sometimes I would play that song when I want to think about them. Other people maybe left out a photograph. So for me, music is very much about, it's like a photograph. And I do believe it's healing. I do believe it helps me process thoughts or memories. Sometimes you're having a bad day at work or a bad day generally. You get back to the house, you go into your room and you stick on your favourite album or listen to your favourite songs. And, you know, it helps you process what happened. And then, of course, I have nowadays a recording studio is on a computer. And so I attempt to write my own tunes the odd time. And so I play the guitar, I play the ukulele. I have, a mandolin. I even have a synth guitar. So I would sit down and try to be a bit creative sometimes, and it's great therapy. It's, and whatever you might be worrying about, whatever's dragging you down, when you sit, and as you know, when you sit down to start recording anything, you don't talk in terms of minutes. It's hours upon hours of your evening just disappears like that. And it's great, and your mind just goes elsewhere. So I think music is a big part of helping you deal with the challenges. And not everybody's a musician like me or whatever, but listening to music is something that that people I think benefit enormously from.
Well, That was fantastic, Richard. And you kind of beat me to my next question, which was going to be, to discuss about how music is it can be a healing tool, and you definitely touched on that. When we last spoke, you had told me that you had some experiences in your travels with children in Crossfire and different things where music has kind of surprised you. Do you care to share with us just a couple of maybe of the experiences you've had with music, out in your travels and?
Well, I'm very lucky that I get the chance to travel to different places and different cultures. When you go to, say, for example, Africa, and the music is a very different culture from the music that I grew up with, and but because you're a musician, well, I don't know, maybe people who aren't musicians are like this as well, but I just find it really enthralling to go out to, say, some of the most remote villages in Africa and places where I've been, people living in abject poverty. But they put on a show for you. And, they have the drums and all that and rhythm. And it's fantastic. What they can do with the drums and the singing, and it just entertains a whole village and me, of course. And then, of course, if I bring my guitar with me, then they're equally as interested in me playing the guitar. And I've had some great memories. I remember one time being in a village, I think it might have been Kenya, and I had my guitar with me. And of course, maybe I was a bit of a novelty blind person coming out. I was white, and then I played the guitar. So, I had a bit of maybe interest, I don't know. But I get the guitar out, and of course, I'm trying to think of a piece of music or a song that will sort of, that they can all participate in or enjoy. Mm-hmm. So I decided to play the Hokey Cookie. And before you knew it, the guys were telling me they think it was the largest game of Hokey Cookie they've seen in the world. Like, there was hundreds of children doing the Hokey Cookie. And there I was standing with my foot up on a stool, playing the guitar, the acoustic guitar. And, again, I couldn't speak their language. They couldn't speak mine, maybe. But music, as a result of the music, we were all communicating and having fun, really. And I remember a couple of things, like I was in Bangladesh one time, and you have all the internet here now and you have all sorts of communication here, but when I was in Bangladesh, you wouldn't have seen too many people with a mobile phone, and that. And I remember going to a school one day, and there was a wee band playing outside the school because it was warm and people were able to play outside, and there was a band playing outside. And of course, me being a musician now, and oh God, there was like stringed instruments and there was drums and all that, or they were jamming away outside, and I decided, God, I can play an instrument. Here, give me a guitar or whatever it is he's had there, and I'll join in. And of course, I lifted this guitar and I got the shock of my life because they sounded brilliant. But these things were all homemade instruments. I mean, I've never made an instrument in my life. I don't know too many of my musician friends that ever made an instrument. But these were all homemade instruments made out of wood and maybe bits of metal and stuff. And I couldn't actually master the instrument, whatever it was, something like a guitar, but I couldn't just grasp the tuning of it. And so I quickly handed the guitar back. But they made it sound fantastic. No, they really were very musical, very much in tune, and had a great sound as a unit. I went and looked at the drum kit. And the drum kit was just made out of drums, metal drums or metal containers that they found. And they stretched stuff over the top of them and stuff like that. And again, I didn't see it. So by listening, when I was listening to it, it sounded like something you would buy at a music shop anywhere here. But when I looked at the instrument then and I realised it was anything but what you would buy in a music shop here. But it sounded fantastic. But the important part about it was, I asked them what the music was about, and they were telling me it was really an educational tool for, letting the children know how important it was to wash your hands and stuff like that there before meals or all that sort of stuff. And so music there, in that circumstance, again, abject poverty, the music played its big part in communicating important messages. And then one other night, I was out and it was another part of Kenya, I definitely know that. And we were sitting around a campfire out in the bush. And there was me and a guy from Ireland called Jerry Carthy. And Jerry played the guitar and I played the guitar. But we hadn't got guitars with us or anything. And I was out visiting projects. But that night we were just sitting around this campfire. And these two local guys arrived with their guitars. And they were playing it with a fantastic night, just, but I believe, it's just, like I've obviously a great love of Africa, and I've a great love of the people in Africa. And, here we were sitting there around a campfire at night in a place that I never dreamt I would ever be as a child, out in the bush, and these two guitar players come along and they sing and they play. So it obviously come around to the fact that me and Jerry play the guitar and stuff. So the guy handed me his guitar, and it was a guitar, a proper guitar. But I couldn't play it very well because he was right-handed, I was left-handed. But the one thing I noticed is the guitar was broken. The neck on the guitar had snapped completely. Now, you know that when a neck on a guitar snaps, it's very, very difficult to get that guitar back to its original state, tuning-wise and all that sort of thing. And normally, probably what me or you would do would be take it to a professional guitar repair person, or else just buy a new guitar. But these guys obviously hadn't got the either resource available to them. So they fixed the guitar themselves. And the guitar sounded as good and played as good as new. So, I mean, it was just, I was just, again, confronted with maybe how disposable I could be in terms of a guitar's broken in a new one. As opposed to these guys just have to make it happen. So, I mean, I suppose music in context too is very important. So playing a guitar in Africa or listening to music in Africa, listen to African music. Like there's a song called Malaika that's an African song. Boney M actually sang it. I didn't realise that until I come back from Africa. But a lot of people in places where I was used to sing it's a beautiful song. And again, I would listen to that sometimes. And I think if the time ever comes about that, which it probably will, like all of us, that I won't be able to travel to Africa as much or whatever, or that song, Malaika, will always be something that I would play. It will just take me right back to being in some of the most saddest but inspiring situations that you would ever experience in your life.
That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Richard, for sharing that. And I guess this next question kind of maybe expands on some of what you're saying, but in general, what would you say, how would you weight the significance or the importance of music just in the world and society in general?
I think music has a big part to play in all our lives. From being a musician or somebody who listens to music. At many of the levels that I've outlined already, in terms of your own release as a musician who sits strumming the guitar. I mean, there's a guy I know in England that every week he sends me a recording of a song that he writes. He's not interested in being famous. He's not interested in the song even being heard by anybody other than the people he sends it to. And this guy is a brilliant guitarist. And he's also a blind person as well. But like, I can see how he just loves his music. And he spends his time that week writing songs, laying down the rhythm track, laying down the guitar, strum, the rhythm guitar bit, and then doing the lead guitar bit and playing around with the various sounds of the lead guitar, and then doing a vocal over it. And that's not a guy that wants to go out and entertain anywhere. That's not a guy that wants to play in a pub. He done all that in his day and played professionally for a while. So, but this is somebody who just really is a brilliant example of how you can enjoy music. And the same way a golfer goes out and spends his day golfing, or somebody will go out and work at their garden all day, that music can be that, at that very personal and very individual level. I think it also helps people process what goes on in their lives and what goes on in the world. If you're a songwriter, for example, and to be able to sit down and write a song about how you're feeling, whether it be a broken relationship, whether it be something that was hurt you in some way, whether it be something that's going on in the world, or whether it be something happy, experience you've had. To be able to process that through music is incredible. And then you don't know who you're reaching with that. Somebody that's experiencing the same issue that you've written about. So when they hear your song, how many people out there, and I've heard it so many times, that they would say, that song was a big help to me in my life. Because that song held a message for them that just helped. And then, music, like, for example, have you ever walked through a city centre where there's no music playing, and then walk through a city centre where there are musicians on the street?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a completely different place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking, like, if you're walking around the city centre on a Saturday afternoon, and there's drummers at one street, there's buskers on the other street playing guitars, and a band set up on a stage somewhere else. I mean, it's a walking entertainment. You're going into a city centre and you're being entertained for the whole afternoon. Whether it be a saxophone player playing at a corner somewhere, a guitar player playing somewhere else, some guy doing a drum solo. I remember one time got into a music shop in New York, and there was a bass player outside, and he was sensational, to say the least, playing away, just a bass player. But it creates a mood and an atmosphere in a city centre that is irreplaceable as far as I'm concerned. And I've spoken to the city centre manager in Derry. They say, like, why can we have more music in the city centre all day, at least at the weekend?
Mm.
So when people go down the town shopping, it's not just about buying your clothes. It's not just about getting a sandwich somewhere. You're actually walking around a town that makes you feel good. And I believe music does that, makes people feel good and creates a different atmosphere. So I think music has a massive role to play in providing a positive energy to people, of changing their mood, of getting strong messages out there, and of uniting people. It does all of that.
I couldn't agree more. Well said. And it is amazing how it can transport us, just like you were saying. And it never surprises me, the impact that it can have. And that's exactly why I'm doing these interviews, because I don't want to take for granted that other people out there, maybe somebody's sitting struggling, and their only outlet is YouTube, or to have connectivity, and to remind people of the importance of music, and it's obviously it's played an impactful part of your life, and I couldn't be more thankful for you sharing some of your history regarding that. To conclude the interview, Richard, are there any final words? Could be music related or not. I would just like to put out there, words of wisdom from your experience so far on this earth, for maybe the next generations to come. If this is floating around there years to come, that maybe some life lessons, whether it includes music or not, that you'd like to put out there in the world.
No, I just think that, I'm lucky and blessed that I'm a musician. And sometimes I reflect on my life. I'm 62 years of age now. I've been playing the guitar since I was 11 years of age. And as I say, music has been a big part of my life, and the friendships I have, the social life I have, my hobbies, my pastime. And, but no matter what talent you have, if it's used in the right way, then it's of enormous benefit to you and the people around you. And I just think that no matter who you are, if you're listening to this interview or whatever, we're all given talents. Music is one. Singing is a talent. Football skills is a talent. Being able to make things, art, whatever it is you can do. And I think we all have the potential to use that talent in a way that helps others. And you've seen talents being used in a negative way. I often think of the scientist that develops a bomb. And I think, God, my contribution to the world was developing a bomb. Of all that ability, all that science, all that education and skill and talent that I have. And I've used all that to develop a weapon, for example, that kills people, that maims people. Then isn't that an awful waste of a talent? And to call it a waste is almost not doing it justice. And I sometimes wonder about how people think that do that sort of thing. How they feel they've had a good day or they've had a good week at the office when you develop something like that. Whereas if you have talent, whatever it is, and you deliberately set out, at least as a minimum, not to hurt anybody, but even set out to use it to help others. Like I think that would be one of the greatest things that you could do, to use your God-given talents to help others. And, you know, music is a big one, but there's plenty more talents that you have, that I have, that we can use as well. And I just think that we all have that opportunity in life. I think in my life, when I look back on some things, people never realized the role that they played in my life. Through kindness and generosity. And we all have that role. It's good to be aware of the role that you play in the life of somebody else. And you never know how what you do can help others or impact even negatively on others if you're not careful. So it's about being aware of the role that you play, the talents you have, and how you can bring those talents, you know, to helping others.
That was fantastic. I feel bad that there wasn't like a roaring applause after that. There should have been.